everyone. And welcome to the book launch of Space by C.L. Carey, or as we like to say, the Spoony Space launch. I'm your host, Kat Gordon, award-winning author of Season 1, Iris and the Crew Tear Through Space. But way, way more important than that, I am the official book auntie of this amazing YA space opera. So yeah, I hopped over from the Spoony Authors Network to the Renaissance Press channel because Christina and I want you to relax and enjoy this time together with us without leaving your comfy places. Today is gonna be a blast, folks. We're gonna have fun discussions, awesome readings, and you need to stick around for our book giveaway later. And guess what? You also have the opportunity to ask the author questions. How cool is that? But hey, enough of my yakking. Now, let me introduce to you to the star of our show and one of my dearest friends. C.L. Carey is the pen name of Christina Robbins in honor of her grandfather and mother, who encouraged her love of creating and telling stories since she was very young. She enjoys creating new worlds of wonder and characters who will resonate with her readers. She hopes her writing will start important conversations that relate to the present time we live in. She feels that being autistic gives her the ability to see the world in a different way and write characters who face a variety of challenges with humor and heart. She currently lives in Saskatchewan on the prairies with her artist and chef husband and rescue cats. Hello, Christina!
Hi! Hi, Book Auntie!
Friends, I was realizing we have been friends since when Twitter used to be fun. We
Yeah.
have been friends since before we were published.
Uh-huh.
And here we are today. How do you feel?
It feels really amazing. I mean, it's been an amazing journey with you, watching you develop into like such an amazing writer, from just saying, I'm going to write a chapter. I'm going to see what happens. And then, what are you, like 4 books later,
Yeah.
2 anthologies, award-winning anthologies, an award-winning book. It's like amazing to watch you grow as a writer. But what was even more fun was sharing this experience of having you as my editor. I trusted you so implicitly that I barely even, like, I think I accepted every single one of your edits because it was like, she knows what she's doing and she loves this book as much as I do. So that really meant a lot to me. So I really wanted to share this whole launch with you.
It's fun to do this. Folks, it's really, really supremely cool for me to be doing this with Christina because I was there in critique group when she read the first line of her book. And I'm telling you, all of the rest of us authors, our jaws dropped to the ground when we heard that first line. And you're going to hear it soon when Christina does her reading. I want to know what inspired you. I guess I can't ask you what inspired you to write that first line because I don't want to give it away, but what inspired you to write space, period?
Um, I have this weird thing where first lines come to me out of nowhere and I'll just sit with it, marinate. Like with Angel of Death, my name is Sarah. You don't need to know my last name, but knowing me might be a death sentence. Came to me while I was sitting on a streetcar. And then I was like, okay, well, let me figure out who Sarah is. Same thing with this. So I believe it was during COVID. And everything was just going, it was the early days when it was just pandemonium and Italian mayors yelling at people in their towns. And it was crazy. And I thought like a lot of the negative sort of anti-vaxxer stuff and blah, blah, blah was coming a lot from religious places as well as, political. Yeah. And I thought, what if a world was developed that had no religion, just ran off of science, like no religion, no gods, none of that, but science was what they worshipped. What would they turn out to be like? And then I figured, and then that first line came to me and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. What if that were to happen? And then you had no God, you had no religion, you just had science, as Sha-ne does. That's the main character. She just has science. That's all she believes in. That's all she cares about. That's all she wants to do. But what happens if you're a cog in a machine and the machine breaks?
Yeah.
Like the world broke, and all of a sudden, all these people who were these cogs in these machines that were running had nowhere to go and were staying home, were losing their livelihoods, all this stuff because the machine had shut down. So, what happens if the entire machine breaks and now all of a sudden you're nothing?
Hmm.
She knew what she was going to be. She knew what her destiny was, not destiny. She knew what her path was. She knew where she was going, what she was going to do. Everything was set. And then it all just, and all of a sudden now she's just Sha-ne. And who is Sha-ne? Who is this person? Who is she supposed to become? How is she supposed to survive? So that was basically the basis of it. And the idea that she was stuck with people that she didn't trust and she hated was perfect. It's like I don't like every single person I'm stuck with right now, I hate. Like I don't understand these people. They're Earthlings. I don't understand them. They're weird. They're greedy. I've been taught to fear them my whole life. So it really came out of this idea of fish out of water, and the idea that if you're a cog in a machine and the machine breaks, what do you become? And that was like sort of the main beginning of the story.
Yeah, it's just I'm so in love with this story. Uh I loved it from the beginning, and I loved every time you read in group. I loved just hearing where the story went. Um, Now, people are probably wondering why I'm wearing a book auntie hat and why we call each other book mama and book auntie. Do you want to talk a little bit about this and why we fought so hard for this story to come about?
Yeah. So when I first sent my story to beta readers, I got a lot of feedback. Some of it was great and some of it was helpful, but one of it wasn't super helpful and in fact had kind of taken and stripped my voice out of the story. When I submitted my story, thinking everything was fine because I had trusted this person knew what they were doing. And the book almost got rejected. And I didn't understand why, because this was my first time doing this. And then Kat went to the publishers and said, "Look, you trust me, you know me. Give me this book, and I will give you I will give you a masterpiece back. I will find her voice again because that is not the book that we read that she read in group. That is not the book that we saw. I don't know what's happened to it. Well, we knew what happened to it, but I'm gonna fix it." And she did. She stripped away all the extra stuff that I thought needed to be in there that didn't need to be in there. And she found my voice again. And basically, all she did was take out all the stuff that this other person had done and fixed it so that it made sense and everything flowed together. If it wasn't for Kat Gordon, this book would not exist. So when it came time to dedicate the book, I dedicated it to her because she's not just one of my best friends, but she's the reason that this book exists. She's as much a reason this book exists as Renaissance as me for creating it, because without her, this book wouldn't be a thing. So she's my book. She's the book auntie.
Yeah. And I mean, I always feel too, like in so many cultures, aunties are also fighters too, right?
Yeah.
In so many cultures in this world. So, I guess that's another reason why I feel I was the book auntie. But yeah, it was interesting. It was an interesting experience because I was there from the beginning
Yeah.
and I couldn't understand what happened. And then when I saw the manuscript, I said, if I like, it felt like somebody else was trying to write your book for you. And the reason why we bring this up and why I feel it's important to bring this up as a professional editor is that I want to say, and I'm also an author, I want to say to authors out there, it's okay to question the edits and feedback you get. If you feel that someone is removing your voice, that's very valid to speak out. There's a lot of, say, newer authors and such who think that they have to accept everything an editor says. And you trust me, as an editor, I always say to the authors whose work I edit, look, these are my suggestions. You're in charge in the end of what you apply or not. So yeah, so from being there at the beginning, book mama, book auntie, and I'm so excited. And thank you for your very kind words. But this is about you and about space. So we're going to redirect it to this fantastic book. We're going to How about we do the reading? Let's
Okay.
read the prologue.
We're going to be doing two readings today. One is going to be the prologue, and then the second one later is going to be chapter one. The prologue will introduce you to Sha-ne and I, who is her AI helper, which my husband designed and is a lot of fun and is in the trailer. All right, here we go. I'm going to read a content note first because I want people to know if there's anything in this book that can be upsetting. This book has themes of enslavement, forced surrogacy, discussions of religion and race, and a lot of swearing. Prologue. The first entry after it happened. Recording started. Only 50 Earthlings remain in the galaxy, and I hate every one of them. This all began on an ordinary day in my rather ordinary life. I felt happy with the ordinary. I was top of my class and on my way to being the chief engineer of the tin can I'm currently floating in. I look forward to the next 40 years of my life. Now, I have no clue what will happen. Next, where we'll end up, and if I'll survive. As we say in the engineering corps, where I should have been apprenticing for the next 10 years, although that's out the window, along with the engineer who had once hit the wrong button and blown into oblivion, I am well and truly spaced. I'm dictating this entry to my AI. I call them I because we aren't supposed to name our artificial intelligence units, so I guess there's a bit of rebel wrapped into my engineering genius. Well, I do have pretty sharp coding and hacking skills. By the time I was 12, I had reprogrammed I to be more than a helper, using a program I found on an old system I'd been helping to reboot and reconfigured it with my mods. Some of our systems are over 2,000 years old, and while we have advanced greatly, much of the equipment keeping our little bubble of life alive had also been over 2,000 years old, which is also how old our colony was. I'll never see it again. The golden lights glinting off the top of the dome when the sun went down, the red clouds swirling over top during sandstorms, staring at the stars, the twinkling lights of the cryo ships, most of them still being worked on to, fix what the Earthlings broke. Dreaming of one day going to work up there and, oh, if I hadn't been on this ship, I'd be dead too. Recording paused by I. You are short of breath and I am worried about your health. I'm okay, I. Thanks for noticing. I'll drink some liquid in order to refresh and try to gain control of my emotions. Very well, carry on. Recording resumed. Where was I? Oh yes, I designed I to be more empathetic, not to use as a mere servant, but to also be, and this is terribly sentimental of me, a friend. We weren't encouraged to form bonds on Mars. That part of humanity was seen as wasteful by our creators. Science and technology were all that mattered, and whenever Martians tried to be more Earthling-like, they would mostly disappear. Often these Martians left to live with the Earthlings, contained in a separate part of the colony. Earthlings consider themselves a race all their own, but we are both human, although Martians are more important, and we know they couldn't have survived without us. Those people are all that remain of planet Earth. Actually, to be quite honest, these Earthlings are descendants of those who had lived within a moon colony about 1,000 years ago, when the Earth did what any planet ruled by Gru does. It exploded. No one knows what happened, but it became uninhabitable, and all contact stopped. The moon colony had relied on Earth for all of their supplies, too. They'd had 30 days and then starvation would set in. Enter Mars, the savior of humanity. We are not a planet that runs off religion and capitalism. We all have jobs, and we're designed to do those jobs from birth. We don't actually work from birth, though. We have schooling from age 2 to 11, 17 hours a day, learning our predestined field. Then at age 12, we move into our appropriate faction housing and continue on with our education until age 18, when we're presented with our lifetime assignments and apprenticeships. We can move up and around within our assigned jobs, but we can never just go willy-nilly into another profession other than the one assigned to us at birth. I've been assigned to engineering. I'm also versed in physics, which was a side study I undertook after I hacked into one of the old systems and found some files on a physicist who was trying to find a way back to Earth. I haven't been through the entire file. I'd been saving it for my 10-year assignment on board this tin can, a euphemism used by Martians to describe the inert but still inoperable ships that float above us in our outer atmosphere. My assignment started yesterday, the same day my entire world quite literally blew up. Thanks be to science, I was already here with me. I never did get to know my mentor Heron well, but I still hear him screaming for mercy at the violent Earthlings who've commandeered my workspace. They came on board with me, but I never noticed them. I'm guessing they were in the cabin with the AI pilot of the shuttle. We're typically not encouraged to talk to any Earthworkers lest our intellect be compromised by their lack of intelligence and belief in some sort of sky god. I prefer to keep to myself anyway. They mostly just walk around looking somewhat disorganized and have various tones of skin and nationalities, I believe that's the term they use. We Martians were created in a lab without messy romantic silliness. As I said, we were designed for our jobs, to keep the colony running, and everyone had a purpose. We never overpopulate our colony with lust. Earthlings were everything wrong with the solar system, according to our board members, all of whom are dead now. No more board. No more colony. It just keeps hitting me over and over that everything's no more. And at the same time, I haven't felt any real emotion about it. I'm more worried about staying alive than wallowing in the realization I'll never see my home again. Recording stopped. What are we gonna do? I have weapons. We could eliminate the intruders. As satisfying as that is, they and us being the only humans left, that might not be such a great solution. Agreed, you could possibly side with them, convince them you can help. You're suggesting I fix the ship and help them open the doors to the storage area? I didn't respond, as I felt another status must take priority. Your vitals tell me you are ready for nourishment. Before the Martian could argue the point, she jolted. Shit, I hear them coming. Power down, I.
Okay, my camera decides that it's like, hey, there we go. All right, yay. I'm so glad that you read that for us. And it's so funny, like I've read that so many times, but yet it also still felt like the first time too. I still have that great feeling about it when I hear that prologue. Also, like I think I should be a thing. I would love somebody to interfere with my thought processes and stuff to tell me to go eat.
Eat, yeah, you need nutrition. your liquids are low. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the AIs themselves, because Martians are so focused on what they're doing and they don't have family or any of that stuff. So they have these machines that clean and take care of them and everything. But Sha-ne wanted a little bit more than that, which marks her out as not as Martian as she should be, because she does kind of crave that closeness, that somebody to trust, whereas the other Martians just want to do their jobs.
Yeah, and I like that you said she's not as Martian as she should be. And the first word I think is someone who diverges from the norm.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, I mean, I'm autistic, you're autistic. Can we talk about, how you crafted Sha-ne? When I read Sha-ne as an autistic person, I kind of feel like, oh, that's relatable. Oh, that's relatable. Was that your intention?
I think anytime I write something, there's going to be a little bit of me in there.
Yeah.
So the way she relates to the coming Earthlings, the way she relates to them is like, why don't you just say what you mean? Like, it's one of those things. Like, she gets really upset when they use idioms and colloquialisms, and she's like, just say what you mean. But she's very like, yeah, she has her own sort of set of rules and like the way she is. And I don't really I like to keep to myself anyway. I find the Martians tedious. I don't like talking to them. I find them, you know what I mean? Like, she's very different. And she knows she's different, but she also hides it and tries to just get along to go along. And, but yeah, I think her having I be a friend, or even I is a they, because AIs don't have genders, and I thought that would be really weird to call her she. So I is a they, but it's almost like a parent feeling. Always there to make sure that Sha-ne is okay, always there to make sure that Sha-ne is feeling well, that her vitals are in a good place, that she's so concerned about her that, Sha-ne actually feels like there's somebody who cares about her in the world. Not just that she exists, but that she exists as someone cares. So yeah.
So any scientists or really smart, inventive people out there, if you want to go and create a bunch of eyes, like I'll be first in line to buy one. Just saying, just putting it out there. Yeah. Yes.
You got the design.
What? Before we talk about the other characters, I do want to talk about the cover of your book. I mean, I feel that covers are I can't help myself. I do judge books by their covers.
And we all do.
Right. And I love space. And for people who are listening too, can you describe your cover and also explain, tell us who did the artwork for you?
Well, my wonderful husband Jason did the artwork for me. He's also known as Villainous, and I love it because I basically wanted to show. So this is the ship, and that's smoke coming from Mars
Ah,
because the colony is burning, and that's the ship that they're on, and they're spaced because that's the only thing they can be on. There's nothing down there. If they go down to Mars without the colony, they'll die. So this is like basically them spaced,
yeah,
just
they got
sitting by
space.
themselves out in the atmosphere, having no idea of what they're going to do or how they're going to survive. But I really loved the way he did the planet. I love the horizon in the background. And I love the little bit of smoke that's coming off of it.
That's wonderful. And on your wall is a drawing of eye as well.
Yeah. So again, my husband, wonderful,
Yeah.
drew eye. So this is the way I sort of saw them being, is like this sort of all these little attachments that come out so they
Yeah.
can do stuff, but very sleek, and then just this giant eye.
Wonderful.
Which is why Sha-ne calls her eye, because she's got this big eye.
It's great. It's great. And you got a very talented husband there, and I think you both worked together to create such a beautiful vision for these characters and the cover. Speaking of characters, though, we know about we know about Sha-ne. Would you like to talk a little bit about the other characters that are in your book?
Absolutely. So basically, other than Sha-ne and the Earthling rebels are the other characters. I can't talk about the twist, so I'm not going to, but there's other characters there as well too. So the rebel group is made up of various different nationalities, people that have come and joined Jonah, who is the father of Josiah, who you'll meet in chapter 1. He's the adopted father of Josiah. So he adopted Josiah when Josiah was a baby and brought him back to the colony to kind of bring some humanity into his actual son, who's become just sort of this like warrior thug kind of guy. But warrior thug kind of guy is married to Millie. Millie is somebody that Emery found while he was on a raid, and she had been forced over and over again to produce children.
Yeah.
So that's where the forced surrogacy comes from. And basically, you'll find out in the second part of the book exactly why. So you start out with these Earthling rebels. There's about 47 or 50, like there's 50 total, because Jonah was basically told you could take 50 people and save them. So
Yeah.
Jonah's brought them up to this ship with the idea that they're going to take the ship, they're going to go in cryo, and they're going to go to Earth or the moon, or they're going to see what's habitable, but they're going to save themselves. Only problem is Jonah doesn't know exactly what's going on either, and there's a lot of stuff going on that people don't know. Josiah doesn't fit in with his rebel group. He's very intelligent. He's really good at tech. They're really good at being rebels and warriors. There's a lot of disabled warriors, but the disabilities don't matter because they're a colony, and in the colony you have to work. So like how Sha-ne has her thing, they have their uses. And so like just because you lose a leg or something doesn't mean you can't still be a warrior. And I think that was really important to me, was to have these people that were warriors that were obviously going to be disabled in some way, but not be sad about it. Just, this is what happens. Let's go on with life, and they're not inspirational. They're just living their life. They're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So the surviving part of this was really important for me. Earthlings are basically kept as slaves. But the Martians don't see them as slaves. They see them as, they're not smart enough to do science, so they're just going to go over there and clean things and do things and whatever, but they don't really know what they're there for. There's a lot of mystery behind who the board is that runs Mars, who these people are, what's going on, what is actually happening on this planet, because all Martians care about is their little section. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all they care about. They just care about keeping the colony going. They're like little minions that are running this colony and keeping it going and keeping it going. So they don't even look at what's going on outside. And when Josiah comes in and basically tells Sha-ne, no, we're slaves, we're forced to do this, or we're, spaced.
Yeah.
Um, Sha-ne gets a eye-opening experience of the fact that maybe being a Martian wasn't so great, or like maybe there's something else going on, and maybe Earthlings aren't as like, unintelligent as she thinks they are, or like or she was just led to believe because
Yeah.
that's what they want to keep their eyes off them. They don't want them interacting with each other. So yeah, it's really important that the characters sort of all had different very, very different personalities. Like Emery acts like a thug, but deep down inside, all he cares about is his family and his wife. He loves his wife so much and he just wants to save her. Jonah just cares about keeping his people safe. And that said a lot. It's all about Jonah wants to keep his people safe
Hmm.
because are these his people? So it's really important that there's like sort of this mystery going on underneath of why did the colony burn to the ground? Who
Right.
is responsible for it? How did it happen? And what was the end result from it happening? So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's great. I mean, one of the things that I love about your writing, because I've read several of your books, is you do not write one-dimensional characters. I feel that you fully flesh out your characters and give them kind of contradictions and complexities and stuff like that. Again, is that something that you intentionally want to do to draw in your readers?
Partly yes, and partly I don't know what my characters are going to do until they do it. Like I just sometimes I have a plot in my mind. Like I'll tell you the second part of this book, which is the sort of twist, that was a surprise to me too. I was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? And yeah, and then there's like an LGBT romance in the background that I was like, I didn't know he was gay either. So I can't like I don't there's like a massive twist in the second part. And I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. But that makes sense. Yes.
Go on.
So I like to say that I give myself characters and then I just sort of let them do what they're gonna do. And sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes I'm like, no, you can't do that. Okay, we're gonna pull that back. But most of the time, I don't know what they're gonna do. I just let them run through the story, and the story just develops. Do I think that I purposely give them depth? I think humans have depth. And I think when you're writing characters, you want to write human characters. So they're going to have flaws. They're going to have outward appearances, but inward thoughts. They're going to have motivations that you're not aware of until you're aware of them. Like, that's just the way humanity is.
Yeah.
I think also being autistic helps me with that because, as you know, people think that autistic people are like emotionless and all that crap, whereas we're usually hyper empathetic and we can usually look at someone and see every layer of what's going on with them. We might miss social cues, but one thing we do not miss is body language and the way I can clock a lie from like 100 feet. So I think when I write characters, I'm able to get inside of the human condition and write that as opposed to just, cardboard, this is this person, this is like, I find that I really love characters that have deep flaws, but that aren't bad. They're not bad people. They just have deep flaws that they're working through. So it was really important in space that, Jonah, especially being that he's the leader of this rebel group, but he's so conflicted in so many ways. And all he's ever been trying to do is keep his sons alive.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know where Josiah comes from. He just knows that he was given a baby because he said, I need to do something to keep Emery from just being violent. Josiah didn't do it, but Millie did. Emery finding Millie and falling in love with her and rescuing her gave him humanity that only she gets to see. So I thought it was just really important to have this found family in this rebel
Yes.
group. They're just found family because sometimes all the family you have is the family that you find, not necessarily your actual parents or brothers and sisters or whatever, but the people that are around you and the people that stick by you and like fight for you, that's your family. And so this warrior group, the rebel group, that's family. And Sha-ne gets pulled into this family, and all of a sudden this solitary Martian who's only ever had eye has like a whole bunch of people around her. Some trust her, some don't trust her because they don't like Martians. But Josiah is just like, you're my family now, and I care for you, and we're going to make sure you survive too. So I think for Sha-ne, it's like this idea of finally finding your people,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
finding them in the weirdest places. Like she would never think that Earthlings would be her people. And now all of a sudden she doesn't have a choice. It's either they're her people or she's forever alone. So yeah, I think complexity of characters is really important when you're writing characters, and to understand that no one is perfect and everybody makes mistakes.
Absolutely. Everything you said was so relatable. I don't know who said this, but someone said, I'm not the author. I just write the incident report, right? Like, of
That's
my
right.
characters. And I'm like, oh man, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Thank you so much for sharing all that, because it's just it does get us to know, the fullness of what you've done with this story. And I think we need another reading. I think it's time for your the audience to listen to you read chapter 1.
All right, here we go. Part 1. We are totally spaced. Chapter 1. Martian year 3024, 2,000 years after losing communication with Earth, 6 hours after the explosion of the colony on Mars, on board the Einstein. Eyes riveted to the screen, the girl took in a satellite image of the burning mass that had been her colony on planet Mars. Sha-ne, pronounced Sha-ne, was the name of the girl. It had been assigned, like all Martian names, from a random name generator at the release of her baby body from the birthing tube, just like every other Martian before her. Everything Sha-ne had ever known was turning to ash right before her eyes, not to mention that now she remained stuck in space on a dead ship with no more than a few years of nutrition supplies on board. Earthlings, or people the girl assumed were Earthling workers, of the colony, rushed through the hallways. An image flashed into her mind of them tying down her mentor and yelling about how they at last captured the captain. She rolled her eyes. Heron was not only not the captain, but all ships were piloted by Martian-made AI. Heron had just been in the bridge area of the defunct ship because he was going to show her how to access the satellite system. They were supposed to finally meet face to face at evening nutrition break, but when she saw his screams on screen, it had been clear this wouldn't be happening. She wasn't sure if she should attempt an escape. She couldn't take on a bunch of armed rebels alone. Even though Sha-ne had decided to remain quiet, her mind raced. She had to figure out how she would survive. Turn on recording. Recording started. That's when Sha-ne had dictated her first appraisal of the situation, stopped, then cursed in her thoughts when the galloping footsteps of a possible intruder pounded in the corridor towards her location. Power down, I. Josiah looked into the room he had finally broken into. It contained a Martian woman, or girl, she appeared to be his age, human, obviously, who had a broken AI, or at least it was switched off. The rest of the room was sparsely furnished. A bed, nicer than the one he slept on, an ergonomic chair in front of the metal slab that served as a desk, along with the usual computer screens and tablets all the Martians possessed. A few uniforms had been hung up. Their beige colors and simple cuts made everyone look the same. The girl's hair was cut in the traditional Martian style, hard sides and above shoulder length. Her hair wasn't curly, but it wasn't wavy either, nor was it straight. All Martians had been created from a variety of genes and DNA of the original founders. They had no parents, as far as Josiah understood. His own parents had been a mystery, but Josiah knew he definitely didn't come from a lab. He'd been born an Earthling in a work colony on Mars, according to his adopted father. Josiah possessed a lower status than the Martians who oversaw his colony. For some reason, there had been Martians who were never able to perform the jobs they were designed for, a possible glitch in their DNA programming. They ended up working in the colonies alongside Earthlings, but mostly as upper management. They were the worst, the overseers. He automatically glared at the girl as memories of a childhood filled with hunger and struggle entered his mind. She glared back at him. Her eyes were a weird color of blue and green and a little brown in a mesmerizing kaleidoscope. Most Martians had those eyes, along with the skin color close to that of their uniforms. Beige. It came from living under a bubble their whole lives and the lack of natural sunshine. On Mars, with its weakened atmosphere, sunshine would be deadly. Josiah had lived under the same bubble, but without regular UV treatment to the fresh air that was pumped into the Martian colony areas. Earthlings got the recycled air. Sometimes the oxygen levels would be so low people would black out. Most of his friends had never made it through childhood, dying from a cut that went septic or starving during the lean times. Well, are you just gonna stand there and gawk at me? Or are you gonna tell me what the fuck is going on? Sha-ne used the Earthling expletive, thinking it might help her connect to her captor. She hadn't seen too many Earthlings outside of the ones allowed in the city, and those ones were mostly covered from head to toe, faces obscured by mysterious veils. She often wondered if their faces were misshaped or some way. But looking at the boy standing in front of her, she was suddenly aware that he was far from unattractive. Hearing the word come out of her mouth, Josiah's jaw dropped open. This was the first Martian he'd spoken to. Emery, his adopted brother, was busy torturing another Martian they had found on the deck. Josiah had been sent to find and round up all the missing crew members, and so far, this was the only other Martian on board. His father was currently trying to spring open the door to food. They were starving. They were always starving. He couldn't believe that the first Martian he met swore like his brother. I'm supposed to take you to the others, he said. Hearing those words accompanied by the screams still coming from the bridge section and through the gap in her sliding door, Sha-ne cowered. Josiah realized she thought he meant to bring her to be tortured. He held out his hand and said, I won't let anyone hurt you, I promise. Sha-ne cocked her head and glowered at him. Now, The robot he thought was broken in the corner instantly came to life and shot him with a bolt of electricity. He dropped like a stone. Sha-ne pulled him in, closed the door before anyone could see what had happened. I rolled over and wrapped his arms with a tape-like substance that would make him unable to move once he woke up. Sha-ne figured he could be used as leverage. At least she hoped he mattered enough to someone to be useful. Turning to I, she pushed a button on the keyboard that stuck out of the AI's middle, and the red light turned on, letting her know that I was recording. Sha-ne had been using I as a journal device since she was 13, and realized she worked through her problems better if she talked them out. I would only interrupt her if it was time for her to take nutrition or provide data on other health checks. Otherwise, they just listened, and that was all often Sha-ne needed. Are we recording, I? The AI beeped in the affirmative. Recording started. I have taken a boy hostage. I hope he's considered important so I can make them listen and not just start taking my body apart, which is exactly what they seem to be doing to Heron. All I know about Heron are his journals, which I've been reading since I was a child, and a few messages back and forth before I arrived. I have been training my whole life for this day, and now, anyway, none of that matters. Finding out what is happening is what matters. I'm not going to get emotional. I'm not going to lose myself. Recording paused by I. Your vitals are normal. Thank you, I. She took a breath. Recording resumed. So this is what I think happened. During my childhood, I had heard brief stories of bands of Earthlings who had risen up and tried to take over our colony. Earthlings are very greedy. They can't help but take what is not theirs. This is what the boards told us. This is why we are forbidden to exchange words with them, and why we certainly can't share our knowledge with them. They will just use it to destroy all Martians have built. They are not trustworthy. Recording paused by Sha-ne. She stayed still, but only for a moment. Recording resumed. What if these Earthlings are the rebels, the Armageddon we'd been threatened with since birth? The Earthlings surely found a way to take control, except they screwed it up because they aren't capable of understanding our technology, so they blew up the entire colony. I saw the blazing domes from space on the satellite feeds. It looked like the fire started in the main dome, my old home, and spread all the way to the working colony. The entire planet seemed like it was on fire. Well, the side we could see anyway. So Earthlings have killed humanity, especially since this ship was only supplied with nutrient paste to last for 2 years, and there's no one left to bring us more. Even if we get the ship moving and we literally have nowhere left to go, no way to find food or shelter, and in 2 years' time, we'll be eating each other. Way to go, Earthlings. Recording stopped. Sha-ne was so involved in her theory that she failed to notice the opened eyes of the tall boy she had taken hostage. He glared from his spot in the corner of the room. Yeah, only that's all bullshit, he said. He tried to move his arms and found them bound to his sides. Then he stopped struggling. His head shook with faint amusement. His mouth formed a wry grin. I guess you got me. What is bullshit? Sha-ne asked. That we did this, that we survived it. Sha-ne frowned and asked again. No, I mean, what is bullshit? I've never heard that word. Sorry, I forgot you've never seen a bull, so you wouldn't know that colloquialism. Wow, that's a fancy word coming from an Earthling. Fuck you, how's that for fancy words? Sha-ne laughed at how the Earthling tried and failed to raise himself up. So, what is a bull? Back on Earth, people ate animals. A bull was one of them. Sha-ne screwed up her face in disgust. Her nutrition came in a bag and was perfectly balanced to keep her alive. Eating animals sounded vile and time-consuming. No wonder the planet failed, Sha-ne said. Josiah nodded. Yeah, they screwed it up pretty good, but that isn't my fault. I wasn't implying it was. What just happened on Mars, however, was your fault. That is fucking bullshit. Josiah was trying really hard to figure out how to work his pocket knife out of his pocket to cut through the bonds around his wrist. This annoying conversation kept distracting him from that mission. Whatever bullshit is, a colony just doesn't blow up without help, said Sha-ne. And since you're in a place that you're not supposed to be, and alive, the only theory that makes sense is that you or your cohorts are in some way responsible for the destruction of humanity. He grunted. Theory. Do all you Martians talk like computers? I do not talk like a computer. Sha-ne snapped back while turning on her systems. I do not talk like a computer, Josiah mimicked. Sha-ne decided that she had nothing left to say to this irritating Earthling, and her only way forward was to break into the ship's systems and fix them. Maybe that would be enough to keep her alive. Josiah watched her tapping away at her invisible keyboard. She had all the latest technology in her room. He had been training on systems since he was old enough to hold a datapad, hacking into the learning programs his brother had stolen on raids. Until the whole thing blew up, even if his home survived the blast, and part of him hoped it hadn't, the food they stole came from the Earthling workers' colony, and sometimes, if they were unlucky, her colony, with the dreaded nutrient paste. Those were all gone. Not that the food had been anything more than sustenance. Still, they had gotten on the shuttle to the only ship with a working cryo. The idea was they could freeze themselves until someone figured out if Earth or even the moon colony was habitable. Food was still the concern. It would take 9 standard months to reach Earth, and then it was either they found refuge and it was habitable again, or they would starve to death floating above the place he'd dreamed of visiting his whole life. He had no idea what was going to happen, but what he did know is that this girl needed an education on exactly who the board was and what kind of colony she lived in, and he was determined to give it to her.
It's great. Oh, it's so great because I haven't looked at the book in a little while. So I just love just hearing it from your voice. I love when authors read their own work. That's just my thing, right? So folks, this obviously is a really cool story. And we're going to go to the part that you get to get involved in. We're going to start with a book giveaway, and we're going to hand this segment over to our lovely Molly, who is going to help us and give away books. So take it away, Molly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Molly. I am in charge of my favorite part is giving away free stuff. So what I've done is I have taken the participants' names from our chat section and I've put them into my little spinning wheel thing. So what I'm going to do momentarily is spin my wheel, and whoever it lands on wins not only a copy of Spaced, but also a copy of Iris and the Crew Tear Through Space, a perfect complement to the book that we've been talking about today. All right, so let me click. It's spinning, and it's spinning. It's spinning very slowly. Alrighty, and the wheel has selected a winner. And who it has selected is the Dark Canvas. I am going to put our email address into the YouTube chat, and if you, the Dark Canvas, could send us an email to let us know how to get these books to you, whether you'd like physical copies or ebook copies, then again, please reach out and let us know. But otherwise, I have nothing else to give away today. So I will hand this back to Kat.
Thank you so much, Molly. We are very grateful because we did not know how to do the magical spinny thing. So now, this is also another opportunity to get the audience involved. You can ask Christina questions. And I love finding out what audience folks have to ask, and I love hearing what authors have to answer. I think I'm a happy spectator today, to be honest with you. I'm just so thrilled to be here. Okay, you know what? I'm seeing stuff already. Okay, so the Dark Canvas asks, are there plans for future stories that take place in the spaced universe?
Yes, I am working on the sequel, which takes place after the events of Spaced. So far, it's called Really Spaced because I suck at titles. But yeah, all of those characters will be back, plus some new ones that you have not heard of or met yet, and then some brand new ones as they continue on in their quest to find a place to be safe. So yes, there is definitely that. Plus, it's going to tie into a world I want to create, which is called, which is based on a time period in Earth when trillionaires ruled instead of governments. So there's these 5 trillionaire families, one of which goes to Mars, and that's where you start space. And then the other ones, some go to distant galaxies, other ones go to mine. And in space, in the second book, you're going to meet one of the ones that goes to mine. But I'm not giving anything else away. So yes, there is a lot of ideas floating around in this brain. But the one that I'm working on is the sequel to Spaced.
Which I personally am very grateful because I know how the book ends. And it's like, can I have that other book?
And I'm working on it in group, so she knows some of the stuff.
It's true. Thank you to the Dark Canvas. We're going to go to Jameson Wolf, who asked how the idea of space came to you. Did you see the characters first, or did you see the world they live in first? That's a good question.
I kind of saw the big picture, that there would be one of her left, kind of thing. Like there's only I mean, there's more than one Martian, obviously, because Heron's still there. But like the idea that there would like go from thousands to one. I saw the characters of, ironically enough, I saw the characters of the second part of the book before I saw the characters of the first part of the book.
Oh,
so
wow.
I can't really talk about that, but those characters came to me as an idea as well too. So in the first part of the book, yes, I thought it would be like, I wanted there to be like her and then an Earthling that just sort of were opposites, but actually the same. I thought that was really important. How they end up, what they end up being to each other, all that stuff did not come to me until the second part of the book.
Very cool. Thanks, Jameson. Okay, DLP Art and Stories asks, what's your favorite sci-fi movie or TV series? Building on what Jameson asked, did this influence your story, or does anything you've seen influence your story?
Okay, I love, obviously, Star Wars. I love Star Trek too. So I think if you think about it, they both influence my story, but do you want to know what influenced my story the most? Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh,
I love the idea of colonies. I love the idea of being completely removed from Earth and having this like self-contained society that builds up because of it. I loved the idea of not having any sort of religion or anything, just people, just people. That was really important to me. But yeah, I love the way Star Wars stories, I love Star Wars books. Like I'm not just talking about the movies, I'm talking about the books. I really enjoy the books a lot. I really love the world of Star Trek where everybody has a job and they don't have to have money or anything. They just do their jobs and they get fed and they have places they live. And, you know, I kind of love that idea, communism, but not really. So yeah, those books really didn't influence me so much as they inspired me. I wanted to stay as far away from making it too much like that. But at the same time, there's a lot of Easter eggs. I also love alien books too. And there's a lot of Easter eggs in this book of things that we've heard in sci-fi movies. And I don't know if people will get them, but I get them and I think they're hilarious. So there are quite a few like Easter eggs in the book, and I'd love to know if people pick them out and get them. I am going to, once the book's been out for a while and people have read it, I'm going to start being like, okay, has anyone seen the alien Easter egg? Has anyone seen this Easter egg? You know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, obviously I love sci-fi. So and I was also very encouraged by Kat's book, all of Kat's books, because she creates these amazing worlds full of really fascinating speculative fiction, people and creatures, and I just love the way it all works together. So I kind of wanted to, you know, take my own kick at the can at space opera. which is a little bit easier, not easier, but it's a little bit less complicated than sci-fi. And the sci-fi is really high on the science and less on the fiction, whereas space opera, much like Star Wars, is really high on the fiction part, the story part, the humanity part, the characters part, and a lot less on the science, because I'm not a science person. But I do love and I'm fascinated by the idea of space.
Oh yeah. I mean, first of all, stop saying nice things about me because I don't want to cry on camera. Hello. But yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Thank you, DLP Art and Stories, for asking that. Oh, I see something. I'm so sorry. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Kalia Page asks, do you find it easier to write linearly or do you write as it comes to you? If you aren't writing linearly, how do you keep track of everything you need to connect?
I'm a pantser. I've always been a pantser. Every single time I try to plot, my characters decide to throw that out the window. So I am a pantser. I did write this very like, yes, I didn't jump around. However, there were, and this is the funny part, there were times when I was writing scenes and those scenes didn't make it into the book because the characters went a whole different direction. So I do try to stay very linear, and I do try to like have it be a progression. So it's a progression for them as well as for me. I find that if you write stuff out of line, when you go to put it in, it's like, oh, that actually doesn't make sense because now that doesn't match that. And so I'm a pantser. All of my stories kind of just barf out of my brain. All like, just that's the way it goes. I wrote, in fact, to finish Space, I started writing one chapter a day to get through it because it was coming so quickly and so fast. But yeah, every single time I try to plot something or I try to write a scene ahead of time, like I'm like, I don't feel like writing today, but I do have this scene in my mind. When it comes time to put that scene in, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'm definitely a linear writer and I'm definitely a pantser.
To vote that we start using the term barfer. Barfer author. Like, I get it.
I just vomit forth the words.
It's true. Some people, like, okay, I'm some people. If I were to write a full outline, I'd actually lose interest in writing the story. I mean, we all are different, right? Okay, thank you so much for that question. Molly has questions. Hey. She asks, did you consider any other titles for this book?
Nope, it's been spaced from day one.
From day one.
Day one, spaced. With the exclamation point. That was
with
very
the exclamation
important.
point, exactly.
Yep.
I like this one. Now that your book is published, what would you like to say to the version of you who was just sitting down to write Spaced?
We did it. We worked hard. We went through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We birthed forth some really amazing characters that I still care about. And I'm proud of you for not giving up and for not ever not believing that this is something that people would want to read. So it takes a lot to be an author. You have to have a lot of self-confidence in yourself that you're actually telling a story that anyone's going to want to hear. There's a bit of ego involved, but you also have to take your ego out when it comes to the editing part. So when you're writing the story, your ego is involved. Yes, I know what I'm doing. These characters are great. This is going to be fantastic. But then when it comes down to the editing time, you literally have to throw your ego out the window and listen to the person who has nothing but the best intentions for your book and go, okay, well, yeah, even though I thought this was great, maybe I should change it a little. So I'm really proud of her for believing in herself and also for cultivating friendships and a mentorship that brought us to this place.
Yay for past Christina and yay for today, Christina. Woo! Excellent. Well, you know what? This hour has flown by. Can you please share with our audience, like, what's next for Christina Robbins / CL Carey? What's on your horizon?
Okay. Well, I don't really know yet. I'm still deciding. I've written a couple of books. One is called The Five, which is about a 24-year-old who's about to get married to her high school sweetheart during the beginning of COVID, and he dies. And then she has to all of a sudden, the five refers to the five stages of grief.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to decide where I want that to land. I wrote a book called Slut about a 27-year-old autistic biracial woman who is surrounded by people who don't have her best interests in mind, and ends up in an abusive relationship, and her hyper empathy is so hard for her to get out of this relationship. Again, I don't know where that's going to end up, but I'm also working on the sequel to Space. And I'm also working on a story within the Trillionaire War universe, which I finally got the thing, and it's called Showmance on LV-15.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's sort of a romance, but it's also another survival space opera kind of thing. So there's a few things on the horizon. I also have a Patreon that you can. I have a YouTube channel called Mouthy Girl Creates. I'm expanding the Mouthy Girl brand. I have a Mouthy Girl Creates Patreon. There's other ways you can support me while I'm trying to write and do all these things. The Patreon's going to have a story called Surviving, and that's going to be told in serial chunks bi-weekly. One chapter a week. We're going to be launching that probably next week. And for like $3, you can get the story weekly, a month, $3 a month to support me. Or for $5 a month, you can get sneak peeks and other things. And I'm going to have recipes and videos of me creating things and all sorts of stuff. So I'm really trying to get into my creator side as well as my writer side. So if anyone wants to come in and sponsor and help that would be great. I can drop links. And of course, we have the second part of the video, the trailer that my husband made for Spaced as well too, that you can see on my YouTube channel right now. Oh, and I want to get into gaming streaming as well too, which will also be on Mouthy Girl Creates YouTube channel.
Are
So a
doing
lot.
so much with your
So a
life.
lot.
That's fantastic.
Hustle, hustle, hustle.
Oh, hustle, but sounds so interesting. And it's great when it's stuff that you're passionate about, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. That's it. Our hour is up. Thank you so much to Renaissance Press for everything with the production of Space, and for letting us have this space to share this wonderful book with you. And thanks for Molly for being our spinner, but also our emotional support, Molly, as we said before the start, to help us any technical stuff. Thank you so much to Christina. Keep putting your awesome stuff in the world. Any final things you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I want to thank Renaissance for giving me this chance, for all the production that they've done, and all they're going to do, because this is an ongoing process, obviously. Look out for in-store signings and stuff if you're in the Saskatoon area, because we're going to be looking at that. You can buy the book at Indigo, which honestly is like the biggest joy in my life was seeing my book on the Indigo website. It really made it come true and real. McNally Robinson as well too, which is in Saskatoon. You can get it there. And I want to thank Kat Gordon for being like not just one of my best friends, but just being so supportive, an amazing mentor, and for what she did to make this book a reality, and being the book auntie that she is, and for hosting this, because when we found out we were going to be doing an online launch, I looked at Kat and I went, "You're going to be hosting it," because she's so amazing at doing stuff like that. Look for her on panels, disability advocate panels at a lot of book cons, and buy Iris. Iris and the Crew Tear Through Space. It's an award-winning book. It's absolutely amazing. It's a world that you want to see, where disabled people doesn't mean that they can't do stuff. In fact, every accommodation is accommodated, and that's amazing. And it's the kind of world I hope one day we actually live in. So yeah, and buy Space. Thanks for joining us.